Deep within a forest no one dares to enter. A young man searches for a treasure lost for centuries. But what he finds is not gold or jewels, it is something that should never have been awakened. Whispers rise from beneath the ground, light flickers in the darkness, and a truth too terrible to forget begins to unfold. This story will make you question, is the real treasure a gift of fortune, or a curse waiting for its next seeker? In the deep forest covered in thick mist, the wind whispered softly through the leaves. Tall trees stood like silent walls around him. The scent of wet earth lingered in the air after rain. Karn walked slowly along a path untouched for years. The lantern in his hand cast light only on his own footprints. His heart pounded so hard it felt ready to burst from his chest. The old map he had bought from a wrinkled man in the market spoke of a lost treasure buried beneath this hill. But no one had ever returned with it. A sudden rustling came from the bushes beside him. It sounded like footsteps, slow and heavy. Karn froze, holding his breath, eyes scanning the darkness. The wind stopped. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath with him. He turned the lantern slowly toward the sound. Two glowing eyes reflected the light. Not human, cold, watching, unblinking. Karn stepped back, his boot sinking slightly into the wet soil. A metallic clink echoed beneath his heel. He crouched, brushing away the mud, revealing the edge of something golden. The eyes vanished. The forest fell silent again. And the ground beneath him began to tremble. Karn's breath caught in his throat. The trembling beneath his feet grew stronger, like something ancient shifting in its sleep. He stumbled backward, the lantern swaying wildly, its dim light dancing across the wet leaves. The golden edge in the dirt shimmered faintly, catching the flicker of the flame. His hands, shaking with both fear and excitement, brushed more mud aside until a circular pattern emerged, a lid, perhaps, or a seal. Strange symbols carved deep into the metal spiraled inward like a maze. The air grew colder. Every sound in the forest seemed to retreat. No crickets, no birds, not even the whisper of wind. Only the steady pounding of his heart filled the silence. He pressed his palm against the golden surface. It was warm, unnaturally warm, as if something alive pulsed beneath it. A voice echoed faintly in his mind. It was not clear, not human, more like a whisper carried through water. He jerked his hand back, gasping. The whisper stopped, but the warmth lingered, spreading through his skin like fire. He wanted to run, but curiosity gripped him harder than fear. He reached for his shovel and began to dig around the edges. With every strike of metal against earth, the trembling returned in short bursts. The soil seemed to resist him, heavier than it should have been, clinging to the shovel as if unwilling to release its secret. But Karn did not stop. Sweat mixed with the damp mist on his forehead as the outline of the lid became clearer. After what felt like hours, he had uncovered a large circular plate, almost 2 meters wide, its golden color dulled by centuries underground. He crouched beside it, tracing the symbols with his fingertips. They told no story he knew, not Thai, not Sanskrit, not any language he had seen in books. And yet, the moment he touched the center of the spiral, the symbols began to glow faintly, one after another, like a sequence unlocking itself. A low hum filled the air. The soil around him vibrated, dust rising in small clouds. Then, with a deep metallic groan, the lid began to turn on its own. Karn fell backward, the lantern dropping from his hand and landing in the mud. He could see light seeping from the cracks, golden, warm, and alive. The ground opened slightly, revealing a dark staircase leading downward. The glow illuminated only the first few steps, fading into an endless shadow. Karn's throat was dry. Every instinct told him to run, but his hands and feet betrayed him. They moved on their own, carrying him toward the opening. He picked up his lantern, now dimming, and stepped cautiously onto the first stair. It felt cold under his boot, slick with centuries of moisture. Each step downward deepened the silence. Even his breathing seemed too loud. When he reached the bottom, the space widened into a cavernous chamber. Golden murals covered the walls, scenes of ancient kings, serpents, and rituals under the stars. The air smelled of dust and incense long gone cold. In the center of the room stood a pedestal made of black stone, and atop it, a small chest. It was covered in the same symbols as the lid above. A single ruby was embedded in its front, glowing faintly as though with its own heartbeat. Karn approached slowly, his footsteps echoing against the stone floor. The closer he got, the stronger the humming in the air became. His fingers hovered above the chest. The ruby pulsed brighter, once, twice, then stilled. He opened it. Inside lay a collection of objects, gold coins, gemstones, and a strange metal amulet shaped like an eye. It was cold to the touch, yet when he held it, he felt something move, not physically but deep within him. A rush of images flooded his mind. Battlefields, burning temples, faces twisted in agony, kings kneeling before fire. He dropped the amulet, gasping for air. The chest snapped shut on its own. The room seemed to shift, the murals around him changing. The kings now stared at him with hollow eyes, their painted mouths twisted into grim smiles. He stumbled back, knocking the lantern over. Its flame sputtered and died, plunging him into darkness. From that darkness came a voice, soft, ancient, echoing through his bones. "You have opened what was meant to stay hidden." Karn froze. The air grew heavier, pressing against his chest. He could feel the weight of countless eyes watching him. The voice spoke again, closer now. The treasure was never gold. It was the promise, and the curse. A faint light began to emanate from the amulet on the ground. It rolled toward him, stopping at his feet, glowing brighter with every second. His reflection appeared in its metallic surface, but his eyes, they were no longer his own. They glowed the same color as the ruby. The voice deepened. "One must bear the memory so the world forgets." Pain shot through his skull like lightning. He screamed, clutching his head, as visions flooded his mind again, empires rising and falling, rivers of blood, chants of forgotten tongues. He saw the faces of those who had found this place before him, all vanishing into the same fate. Their eyes burned red before fading into dust. The ground shook violently. Dust and stones rained down from the ceiling. Karn tried to run toward the staircase, but the path had vanished. The walls were closing in, melting into shadows that rippled like liquid gold. He turned and saw the chest floating in midair, its lid wide open. The voice whispered once more, barely audible now. "Take your place among the keepers." The light burst forth, swallowing the entire chamber. Karn's scream was lost in it. When the forest fell silent again, the trembling stopped. The golden lid above had sealed itself shut once more. Only the faintest glow escaped through the cracks before fading completely. Days later, villagers found Karn's backpack near the old hill. Inside were the torn remains of the ancient map, and a single gold coin, warm to the touch. No one ever saw him again. Yet sometimes, when mist covers the forest at night, travelers say they hear a whisper, faint, distant, calling from beneath the earth. A whisper that sounds like Karn's voice, repeating one phrase again and again. The treasure is not lost. It remembers. As dawn broke over the forest, soft rays of sunlight pierced through the mist, painting the leaves in hues of gold and silver. The hill where Karn had vanished now stood silent, untouched, as though nothing had ever disturbed its ancient sleep. Only the faint outline of his footprints remained, half buried by the morning dew. For days, search parties scoured the forest. They called his name until their voices grew hoarse, but only the echo of the wind answered back. The ground where the treasure had once been found was sealed, solid rock once more, leaving no trace of the stairway below. Weeks turned into months. The story of Karn and the lost treasure became a whisper among the villagers, told around campfires and in quiet bars where travelers gathered. Some said he had found endless wealth and fled far away. Others swore they saw a shadow wandering the woods at night, lantern in hand, searching endlessly for something unseen. But the truth lay far deeper. Beneath the earth, the chamber glowed once more, dim and patient. The chest sat closed, untouched, waiting for another soul brave enough, or foolish enough, to seek what should remain forgotten. And there, standing in the soft light of eternity, was Karn. His body no longer mortal, his eyes burning with that same faint ruby glow. He did not move, he did not speak, he simply watched, guarding, remembering, ensuring the curse would never rise again. Above, the forest thrived as if reborn. Birds sang, the air carried the scent of rain and life. Yet sometimes, when the wind shifted and the mist rolled thick across the hill, one could still hear a faint whisper carried through the trees. A voice calm and distant, yet filled with sorrow. Some treasures are meant to be lost forever.